As a youngster, I spent hours rummaging through the hedges in the garden picking blackberries. I remember collecting them, washing them and putting them into little pots with plans to sell them to my neighbours for 20p, and if we had time my mum would turn them into a delicious treat. Now, I grew up in Cornwall surrounded by farms and green areas where food grew naturally, and I spent a lot of time outdoors with nature, and I can definitely say it holds some of the best memories. Now at the age of 23 and living in Bristol, I've had the opportunity to connect back to my inner childhood, as right here in our city you can have a good old rummage in the bushes.
I am Martin Bailey, professional forager, foraging teacher, and I pick and introduce groups of people, normally, to wild food growing in abundance in their local area. So somewhere like this, Blaze Estate, is a perfect example of a place that's easy to get to, public space where there's loads and loads of lovely wild food growing all year round. Well, I started when I was a little boy, and this is a romantic answer, but it's a true answer. I started by picking mushrooms with my mum, puffballs in particular, when I was little, and used to love battering them, battering them, taking them home, tempuraing them, which I think is something lovely for kids to get involved with. That was my way in, and I remember finding a morel mushroom in our garden when I was about 10 years old, and that was probably the tastiest thing I've ever had then or since. So that really turned me on to foraging. Wild garlic's the first thing that comes to mind. It's something that a lot of people know about, and you can make wild garlic pesto, you can put it in soups, you can put it in all sorts of pasta dishes, rice dishes. I often joke it's almost something I use in every dish except porridge. My breakfast usually is garlic free. So that's a really good example of something still just about in season. So if you were to get out there now and pick some, you could pick the flowers and the seed heads at the moment, which are wonderful for using. I'm pickling the seed heads.
Martin regularly runs foraging walks, and during the walks, which last around 3 hours, you'll be identifying, picking and eating a number of delicious and edible treats that present themselves along the way. Martin definitely has a good eye for natural nibbles.
So here we've got wild garlic. I'll reach across and pick some. It's a wonderful leaf, still just about in season now. Leaves have been around for a few months. I use these to make wild garlic pesto and all sorts of other things. I use it in soups and sandwiches, salads. It's one of those go-to herbs. It's not only fantastic as a flavour, but it's very, very good for your health as well. It's good for heart, it's good for circulation, antibacterial and all sorts of other things. So it's a plant that has several or more different crops. At the moment, if you have a look at this, one's a good example here. We have got the last of the flowers, I'll pick it, last of the flowers clinging on, and then you're left when they drop off with these knobbly little seed heads, which are fantastic pickled, absolutely wonderful, and you can use them in all kinds of things. So yeah, it's that last little gift. I recommend trying that. There isn't a recipe, but there soon will be on my website.
Learn all about seasonal eating, nutritional values, and of course what you can and cannot snack on.
Yes, there are. There's no substitute for getting some good guidebooks and going out for a walk with somebody like me who can show you what's good to eat, what's not. And there are some plants and some mushrooms, like the puffballs I mentioned, a mushroom that's quite easy to identify. You're going to mistake it for probably nothing except a football. And then there are things that are carrot family, for example, very difficult to identify. Wouldn't recommend for beginners.
But of course it's really fun, and you get to learn so much about eating from the earth.
I think in a general sense, it's fantastic for well-being. Just that thing of getting out, reconnecting with nature, even for 5 minutes a day, does everybody that I talk to the world of good. And speaking from my own experience, just 5 or 10 minutes in a lunch hour in your local park. Very good for de-stressing. It's exercise. Foraging is something that's going to boost the nutrition that you're getting. You get wonderful nutritious plants, and the textures and tastes are incredible often.
From mushrooms to asparagus to elderflower and plants, a lot can be eaten, and Martin's rustled together a few delicious treats. We've got a lovely selection of nibbles and treats here that you've foraged for. Tell me a little bit about what we've got here.
We have got, starting with this one, we've got some lovely elderflower cordial,
Yep.
which I made today.
Fantastic.
So, yeah, haven't even tried it myself yet, but this is one of my favourite cordials, which I use not just as a drink, but in puddings and cocktails and all sorts of things.
Fantastic.
Wonderful.
Can we give these a try?
Yeah, let's do that.
Cheers.
Cheers. Nearly forgot.
Wow.
What do you think?
It's really sweet, isn't it?
It's really sweet.
Because mineral water itself is quite, a bit bland.
Yeah.
But,
yeah.
No, that's really nice. So how exactly did you make something like that?
So it's very simple. I took flowers and destalked them. They're mildly, safety tip, they're mildly toxic, the green parts of the plant, so you want to get rid of as much of the stems and stalks, flower stalks as possible. Using a fork to prise them off is good.
Yeah.
Then I get them in a bowl, and meanwhile I'd be adding sugar to water, heating that up just enough to dissolve the sugar.
Fantastic.
And then maybe simmer a little bit longer. Let that cool a bit, pour it over my flowers, cover that up with cling film, that whole bowl, leave it for maybe 12, 48 hours. It's not an exact science.
It's
and
lovely.
Then taste it the next day.
So we've also got a few snacks and nibbles here. So talk to me about what these are. They look delicious.
We have got these, I'm calling them wild spinach and mushroom patties. They have got sea beet, otherwise known as sea spinach.
Okay.
Wild spinach, which grows along the coast in abundance. And we have got various herbs, wild marjoram here, and something called St George's mushrooms in season now.
Oh.
I tried some last night. I've never made them. I was thinking finger food, really.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Let's dig in.
So,
I'm going to break into this.
yeah, I'll put them down.
So you can see all the wonderful things that are inside. So tell me again what's inside. So you've got potato.
Well, I'm glad you did that, because I'd forgotten one or two things that are in there. You've got potato, breadcrumbs, egg to help bind it, and wild marjoram, wild spinach, mushrooms, St George's mushrooms, and something I forgot. You've got these wild garlic. You see these ones here? These are wild garlic seed heads. And this is from last year, and they're pickled and then put in oil, which is absolutely. I've got a recipe on my website. This is a wonderful thing to do, and all the chefs have caught on to doing this. They've got it from foragers, using it in so many dishes, rice dishes, things like this. Absolutely wonderful.
One thing that's caught my attention, another thing that you've also made, are these prickly little things. Tell me what these are.
These ones here, if I lift them up, these are crow garlic seed heads.
Fantastic.
Forageable in July. So foragers often have simple descriptions of things. I call these wild chives, because that's basically what they are, but crow garlic's what they're called in the books. So you've got these lovely seed heads, which just lend themselves, because they've got that crunch to them. You're going to find out. Do you want to try one?
A good way to describe these is they look like prickly blackberries. Try not to drop it in the drink.
Impatiently waiting,
And
impatiently.
I just put this in and just eat it.
Yeah, exactly. And tell me what you think. Any good?
Really like it. I like pickled stuff, especially pickled eggs, but it's hard to describe this. It's like a really prickly gherkin in a ball.
Good description.
A lot of the walks take place in Bristol, so if you're like me and want to reconnect a bit more with nature, then you better get your baskets at the ready.
I have a walk here, actually, at Blaze Estate on Sunday, 10:30, and that's going to be a walk looking at the carrot family and looking at garlics and the allium family and a whole load of other things that grow along the stream here and in meadows and hedgerows. Now you're asking. It's a paid walk. This one is £30 per person, and you can book via my website, which is www.goforaging.co.uk.
I've really enjoyed the foraging adventure, and it really makes you think about your diet and what you're eating, but most of all, it's an enjoyable walk with delicious treats to discover on the way.